What's up, guys? Haven't made one of these in a while. I've been pretty busy, getting into Singapore and all, but now I'm here and I have more time to work on YouTube content. Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about the back control and what I consider to be probably the overall most important skill in the back control, which is retention. That's your ability to stay in the position once you've gotten there. Okay, that's really, really important insofar as like winning matches is concerned. Okay, and even I'm going to argue insofar as finishing is concerned. Okay, so anyway, first I'm going to talk about some techniques, and then at the end of the video you can come back and you'll see I'm gonna analyze some of my own matches where I've made use of the techniques and strategies which I talk about earlier in the video.
So the three main skill areas we're going to focus on when confining ourselves to the back control position itself, okay, are going to be the ability to gain the back control, okay, the ability to retain the back control, all right, and the ability to finish from the back control. In terms of like the order in which you're going to perform these skill areas in a match, obviously you're going to get the position, you're going to retain it, and then you're going to finish the guy, right? That's the order in which you're going to perform the sequences in an actual match or a role. That's not how I recommend teaching them, though. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that in the in the section on coaching and program design. Okay, but just know for now that that might be the order in which you see it in a match, but I don't recommend teaching it in that fashion. Actually, like in a linear, like get to the back, control, and then finish. Right? I give you guys a sample of what we're going to talk about in that section. Basically, what I'm going to recommend is you want to start in the middle. You want to get your athletes very good at retaining the back control position. If they feel that when they get there, the guy can't get out, that's going to increase their submission rate, and then that's going to encourage them to want to get there, okay? Whereas if, let's say you got them really, really good at getting to the back control position, yeah, they'll get there a lot, but then people are going to get out a lot, and they might feel discouraged to pursue it, and they might be like, well, why don't I work? Maybe they have success in some other areas. They're like, I'm getting a lot of triangles. I'll focus on that instead of the back control. Okay, and in my opinion, we always want our students to focus first and foremost above anything else on the back control position. Okay, so I'm going to talk more about it, and it's like in that section, but that's just a basic primer on why. But just for now, understand throughout this section, the three skill areas we're mainly going to focus on when it comes to the back control itself are going to be getting to the position, retaining the position, and finishing from the position. Okay, guys, now we're going to turn to what I consider the single most important skill of the back control position. All right, there's three main skills when it comes to playing back control, or three main skill areas, we can say. And people usually fixate on two which are important, but are not what I consider the most important. Okay, usually when people think about back control skills, they think about getting to the back control, which of course is very important, and we're going to look at that, and especially finishing from the back control, which is, again, very important, and we are going to talk about it a lot, but it's not, in my opinion, the most important skill set. So if it's not getting to the back control, it's not finishing from the back control, what might it be? Well, it's retaining the back control. It's having the ability to, over long periods of time, retain the position against somebody who wants to fight as hard as hell to get out of the position, okay? If you get someone's back in a match, they know that they're in the most dire position possible. So you can expect them to fight as hard as they fucking can to get out, okay? So we have to know, how can we maintain the position over long periods of time against the various forms of resistance he's gonna offer towards us. In addition, if you get really good at maintaining the back control, your finishing percentage is gonna go way up, right? There's a dichotomy. If I have Max's back, let's imagine I take Max's back in a match, okay? I just scored 4 points. I'm probably gonna win. If he doesn't get out, I'm definitely gonna win. Okay, now, at first, he's probably gonna shell up really tight, and it's gonna be hard to get a submission or anything. And then as the match goes on, he gets more and more desperate. He knows if he doesn't get out, there's literally zero chance of him winning. He's gonna start taking bigger and bigger risks, which is gonna, like, maybe he bridges, Max bridge, and he gives me opportunities to get submissions, okay? So the longer you can maintain the position because of the tactical pressure he's being put under in a points match, the more likely he is to take big risks, and your opportunities for submissions are gonna go way, way up, okay? So these are the reasons why you really want to emphasize the skill of maintaining the back control position over long periods of time, all right? Now, let's start to look at some practical skills we can implement in order to do that, okay? So if I have Max's back, so we understand that first and foremost, back exposure is defined as any situation where my chest is facing into his upper back. So we want that to be maintained for as long as possible. That's the single biggest key in maintaining back control, okay? Maintaining that connection. The visual I often imagine, if you guys know those like butterflies that people like pin to like a board with like a needle, right? The needle goes right through the butterfly and into the board. I want you to think of a pin going through Max's chest into my chest, okay? And you want to hold that pin there. Okay, that's what's going to allow you to maintain the back control. Okay, so let's say I have Max's back, right? We want to pin our chest to his upper back like so. And if you look at where my head is, it's very, very low. Okay, so Max just like pull back a little bit. No, stay over there. The more my chest raises, the shittier my back control is. Okay, like you see back controls like this, right? I might be switching to like a Juji Gatame, right? If I'm doing that deliberately, it's okay. But you see like very lazy back controls where people take the back and they're like this. This is no good, guys, because my chest is not in contact with his upper back, okay? The problem with that is it's now going to enable him to start escaping. And the mechanism he primarily looks to escape is to escape the back control situation is going to be by taking his elbow and bringing it past my center line. No, so past my center line. Yeah, like so. Okay, that's the mechanism we're primarily looking to inhibit. Okay. Now, if my chin is on his shoulder and my chest is directly in the center of his back, like so, and I maintain that, even if I don't have the grip, right? I'm holding a Kimura grip, so there's no way he can bring his elbow past my center line. But even if I don't have that, there's no space for him to do that. Okay? Let's understand the two ways he's going to look to get the elbow past my center line are going to be sliding across my stomach, okay? And then the second way he can do it is by going high, like so, okay? In the defense section, I cover those more at length, okay? We're not going to look at them too long now. You can go over to that section to study those, but obviously we need to know them for our offense, okay? So anyway, so we understand that that's what we're looking to do. This is the basic structure we're looking to maintain over long periods of time. And if you don't maintain this, nothing else you do matters, okay? So the next thing that's key is the use of our legs to control his hips, okay? So turn this way, Max. Even more, keep going, a little bit, yeah, good. All right, so the next thing we're gonna look at is the use of our legs to control his hips. Okay, as we talked about in the last section, there's two main forms of back control, right? There's parallel back control and there's diagonal back control. And most people, especially experienced people, understand that diagonal back control has a wider array of viable offensive options. So usually what they're gonna try to do is they're gonna try to get to a parallel back control. So like right here, Max is he's brought himself into a parallel back control situation. Now this isn't good for him. You know, hypothetically I could still get a breakthrough to a strangle, but he has a greater ability to defend himself because I have less attacks I can launch towards him, okay? So what we want to do is we want to be able to maintain back exposure and pull him into a diagonal back control, okay? Now, you see a lot of people do this. They kind of just like throw the legs here, Max, just like let me move you, and they pull like this, and they switch the sides. Okay, that's great if you're going against like a new white belt or something who's not very strong, that'll work. But like honestly, if you're a small guy like me and you try to do that against like a big white belt or a big blue belt, unless he's like very naive, I don't think you're going to have much success with it. Instead, I'm going to recommend using a movement that we call the hip out high knee, which I think when you get good at, you're going to be shocked at how effective it is at moving people's hips while retaining back exposure, pretty much regardless of how big they are. All right, so anyway, we're here. I've got a tight connection between my chest and his upper back. Remember, that's the key we're always looking for to maintain back exposure. Okay, my chin's nice and low. My ear, if I can get it, is close to his ear. Now, I'm gonna take my left leg and I'm gonna bring it on his lower back. We're gonna show the other side in a second, but for now, that's where my lower back, my foot is, okay? Now, it could have been the case that he either hopped over my leg, no, not yet. He either hopped over my leg or I let him hop over my leg. I do this all the time. I let people hop over my leg. We're gonna analyze some matches of mine where I show how and why I've done that. But anyway, you'll see that a little bit later on. So for now, look, he hops over. Now, once he hops over, my left leg on his lower back and my hips come back. So my left leg is extending, my hips are coming back, okay? My chest is still facing his upper back, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna slide my right knee up, and while maintaining the connection of my chest to his upper back, I pull him up onto my lap, okay? The sign that you've done this correctly is that there's a straight line between your knee, his head, and my head. There's no straight, going up to the ceiling, right? So there's a straight line between my knee, his head, and my head. Here, is there a straight line going up to the ceiling between those three? No, there's like a loop, okay? Here, there's a straight line. Now, I can stay tight with my chest to his upper back, and I can take my left leg, and no matter how hard he resists, I can pull him and lock up. Now I have a diagonal back control, and as we're gonna look at later, we have like so many good offensive options here, okay? So, again, we've got a parallel back control. The key to retaining back exposure is inhibiting his ability to get his elbow past my center line. We do that by keeping our chest tight to his upper back. Okay, we've got a seatbelt grip, a Kimura grip, you can do double unders. There's a couple different grip variations we can use, but regardless, ultimately, there's that connection. And now, while maintaining that connection, we want to pull him into a diagonal back control. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take this left leg, I put it on his lower back, and he hops over. Now I extend my hips out, and now here's a very common mistake. This is what I don't want you guys to do. Actually, turn around that way. Yeah. Guys, here's what I don't, a little bit more. Yeah, here's what I don't want you guys to do. When you're here, when you take this left leg and you put it on his lower back, do not come up to your knees. Why? Don't move yet. Look. Take a look at where my chest is. Is that facing his upper back? No, it's facing his shoulder. So if you come here, it's very easy for Max brings his shoulders to the mat, and he brings his shoulders to the mat, and in the process, do it again. Look what happens with his elbow. Comes past my center line. Go back one more time. Here, this will not stop him from doing that. Go to do that. Now, I lose back exposure. That's dog shit, okay? So instead, what we want to do is this. A little bit this way. Instead, what we want to do is this. With this left leg on his lower back, I bring my hips back. Now I slide my knee up, and I pull him up on my lap. Look, the whole time, guys, my chest was facing his upper back. And now there's that connection, there's that straight line here, here, and here, going up to the ceiling. Okay, now I'm gonna there's a slight extension of my arms to make space so I can throw my left leg over the top. And I can pull him to the other side. Okay, now I've got a diagonal back control, and I can get to work trying to submit him in all sorts of ways. Okay, let's just show this from the other side now. No, turn around. I'm not coming up to my knees, okay? That's very, very key. My right leg slides up, and I pull him on top of my hips. Now I'm gonna take my left leg, I throw it over the top, and I lock up a body triangle, and we get to work with whatever we wanna do, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about something he might try to do as soon as you let him out, okay? We're gonna talk more about this throughout the rest of the back exposure section. Very frequently, I mean, what he should be doing is he's gonna try to build up to his base, right? So like we talked about earlier, that the great advantage of the back control is that it robs your opponent of the advantages of exposing his back, right? The mechanical advantages, which is mobility. So, and it does that by keeping his hips on the mat. The second we release his hips in the fashion that we're doing right now, in order to shift from a parallel to a diagonal back control, oftentimes they're going to look to build up to their base, right? He's going to try to get to a turtle. Well, we have a good contingency plan in place for just that occasion. All right, so let me have your back again. I'll turn this way. All right, so we're in a parallel back control, and I want to take him to a diagonal back control. All right, now when I take this left leg off, I go here, he hops over, he builds up to a turtle. As soon as he does that, because my left leg is here, actually, let's turn around. Okay guys, flatten your hip again. Okay, build up your base. Guys, because my left leg is here, see where my left leg is? It's right here. I can take my right leg up, and I can push at the knee, and as I push at the knee, the bottom hook goes right in. Go back. If my left leg was not there, it was like in the way, my right leg wouldn't be able to get there in time. But instead, because it's here, there's nothing stopping the right leg from going right in. Okay? And then you throw the right hook in first, I think you regain your left hook. You didn't switch to diagonal back control like you wanted, but you didn't lose the back control. Okay, so you can restart the cycle and try again. All right, so we're here. Guys, the left leg goes here. Okay, and the reason for that is if he does build up to the turtle, I can push the knee out right away, and we can regain back control. We didn't lose it. Okay, so that's very, very important. Because if he's good, he's not just going to let you do this. He's going to try to build up his base to regain the advantage of the back exposure situation and get the fuck out of there. All right, so that's how you can stop him from doing that. Right, you got to always in the back of your mind have that contingency plan ready. All right. Now we looked at going from a parallel back control when the guy goes to get out. Okay, and how we can shift the side that we're on. Let's look at the same thing from a diagonal back control. Okay, so I've got Max in the diagonal back control here. Okay, so here, I'm here. This time, he's gonna hop over my leg. And now we're gonna do basically the exact opposite of what we just did, okay? This time I'm gonna keep my right leg on the inside. If I can get a hook like I just did on his ankle, that's what I'm gonna do. But sometimes you'll have to settle for just a hamstring curl like so. For now, I'm gonna do it with the hook, okay? Because this is preferred if you can get it. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is, now we can build up to our base, okay? At our knee, because my chest is still facing his upper back because of the fact that my left arm is underneath him. Okay, if he goes to rotate the shoulder to the mat, he can't. Okay, now I can slide my knee up, I can turn him, and now I can throw my hook in. And now I wouldn't recommend going to a parallel back control here. You could. I would try to just get enough space to get the hook in and then go back to a diagonal back control where you have more offensive options, okay? So let's look at that again. Hop a little bit over this way so we have more space. No, that way, good. All right, so now, guys, one more time. We're in a diagonal back control, okay? He succeeds in hopping over this leg, right? This is one of the things people are gonna try to do, right? So now, if I can get this hook here, I get it. Sometimes you can't. You can settle for like a hamstring curl here, okay? Yeah, we'll just do it. We can do a hamstring curl here. Now, I can build up to my base, but I want you guys to understand why this is okay. It's because my chest, the entire time, is blocking his upper back from spinning to the mat, all right? This connection here, which is largely facilitated by my left arm being underneath him, right? In a parallel back control, fall to your side. In a parallel back control, look at where my left arm is. It's certainly not underneath him, it's over him, right? So here, hop over. If I were to build up to my knee, there's nothing stopping his shoulders from going right back to the mat. And in the process, what he does, again, it's that elbow coming past the center line that fucks us, okay? Don't let yourself get fucked by this elbow, all right? So let's go back, let's get a diagonal back control. So, Max didn't think my joke was funny, but I did, and that's all that counts. So anyway, here, he hops over my leg. Now we build up to our base, and I bring my knee, guys, look at how high my knee is, okay? That's gonna enable me to throw that hook in. If it's low, I won't be able to get the foot in, there won't be any space. So I throw the hook in, and I fall, and I regain the diagonal back control, okay? So, if you get good at, first of all, maintaining the basic structure of the back control, keeping that tight connection between your chest and his upper back, keeping your chin low on his shoulder, and also these two skills of manipulating his hips, okay, and negating his resistance, you're gonna get really, really good at retaining the back control for lengthy periods of time. That's gonna increase your submission rate, and it's also just generally going to increase the rate at which you win matches. All right, guys, so we're gonna look at two variations of the back control, which are gonna be really important as we move throughout this section. It's dependent largely upon whether my head and my legs are on the same side or on opposite sides, okay? And that's gonna confer certain advantages to you, depending on which side you're on, all right? Now, Max, I'll do parallel first, so Max, come over here. So, if my head and my legs, so, all right, guys, I'm going off of the assumption that you're working with like a body triangle. Really, nobody in the modern day works with just double hooks in. That's kind of like old-fashioned at this point. It might be in the gi. I don't train in the gi, and I don't watch it that much. But in no gi, pretty much always everybody works with their legs both on one side. Okay, like so. All right. Nobody really does this anymore. You do this to get your points, and then you go here. Okay, or a body triangle. Okay, something like that. I usually go here because I got shorter legs, so I prefer like a foot-to-foot configuration, okay? Now, in this sort of a situation, you'll notice my legs and my head are on the same side, okay? This is what we call a parallel back control, because it's a parallel line between my legs, or my feet, and my head, okay? Now, parallel back control it's still back control, so it's good, right? But I really only have one offensive option, which is pursuit of the strangle. And in addition, I don't really have any good way to hand fight and trap one of his hands with my legs. Like, if I take this left arm out and I try to like trap it, he's probably gonna spin, and it's not really very good. You see people do this, but it's just not that great. Like, it's pretty easy for him to just keep your wrist high. Like, as you go to push it down, like, there's not much really to this, right? If he's dumb and he just, okay, it might work, but that's really all you've got. So for that reason, it's kind of offensively limited. Now, your best bet is to bring your chin down. We're gonna talk about this later, but your best bet is to probably try to use like a mandible strangle, okay? So you strangle over the jaw. But realistically, what I would try to do, you could score your points here, but then I would try to shift to a diagonal back control. Okay, sit up. So if that's a parallel back control, what's a diagonal back control? Well, it's the opposite. So Max, come over here. It's where my legs and my head are going to be on opposite sides. Okay, so my legs are on the top, my head is on the bottom. All right, so there's a diagonal line between those two. In this situation, I have really, really good offensive options. You've got, I would say, two main offensive directions you can go. The first one involves trapping hands in some fashion. We're going to look at this at length later on. And it's much easier to do that because you can get to a double cross grip here, and there's nothing inhibiting my ability to trap his arm. And then you can look for either the rear strangle, okay, or you can look to transition into a back triangle, okay? So that's one offensive direction from the diagonal back control. You can trap hands, and then you can look for the rear strangle, okay, or you can transition to a back triangle, all right? The other direction you can go into from a diagonal back control is going to be switching to a pinned Jujigatami, okay? Like so. Okay, and we're gonna cover this at length later on. I just want to give you guys a basic primer on the position, okay? Now, if I'm in a parallel back control, just turn your hips. If I'm in a parallel back control, and I try to switch to a pin Jujigatami, like, my legs are not in the position to do it. It'd be really hard to get this right leg out and then over his, out from underneath his body and over his face to get into a pin Jujigatami. Whereas if he's in a diagonal back control, just rotate your hips again. Guys, if we're in a diagonal back control here, look, my left leg is already in place. That's really what makes it all work. So it's very easy now. And you just go over. Now I've got the pin Jujigatami, and I can get to work. Okay, so that's why, generally speaking, at a high level, people that are good if you're getting attacked from a back control, you're probably going to try to put yourself in a parallel back control. And if you're attacking from the back control, you're probably going to try to put yourself into a diagonal back control. Now, when it comes to retaining the position, just maintaining it, right, which, as we've talked about, is is very, very important, right? It's one of the three central skills of the back control position. They're kind of the same, okay? This is just really for finishing, right? But ultimately, the more finishing pressure you can put him under, the tighter he's going to have to be to defend it, and therefore it'll be easier for you to control the position too. So there's sort of this dichotomy between control, just retaining the back control, and attacking from the back control. They play off of one another beneficially for you as the offensive man.
All right, guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to break down some of my old matches where I make use of the techniques and strategies which we explored in this video. Okay, so first up is going to be a match I had against Logan Santos at the East Coast Trials a couple years back. Also, because I know people are going to comment on it, at the bottom left you'll see the legal spelling of my last name. I've written about it in the past, but I'll tell you guys right now real quick. I was applying to PhD programs in philosophy, and the humanities are it's a very sensitive subject, we'll say, or subject area, right? And sometimes jiu-jitsu, there's some nefarious characters involved with it, okay? So I didn't really want my PhD program applications to be associated with my jiu-jitsu career. So for my jiu-jitsu career, which at the time I didn't think was going to be like my actual professional career. I thought I was going to be a philosophy professor. That's where I was aiming to go. I just thought of it like as a side gig, so I didn't really give a shit, about like the spelling of my last name. But anyway, regardless, guys, that is how you actually spell it. And at this point, I don't want to. Too many people know me by the DEGLE spelling in the jiu-jitsu community. It would be way too much of a hassle to go to like the actual spelling. I wish I could go back in time and change it, but it is what it is. Anyway, so let's get on to what you guys are actually here for, the jiu-jitsu. All right, so we're gonna see Logan. This is a good move on his part, but he kind of fucks up. Okay, so whenever you are reaching in this fashion where my hand is reaching behind Logan's knee, the elbow, it doesn't always, but usually it drifts from the torso. It's hard to make that grip without the elbow drifting from your torso and your hip. And as a result, there's an opportunity for a Kimura, okay? See how his right arm comes over the top? But I recognized this soon enough, and I brought my elbow in, okay? What that meant was he lost the Kimura opportunity, and here my arm goes around his back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to thread my legs in such a way that allows me to threaten back exposure, okay? And now what's going to happen is I've got like a bit of a seatbelt there, it looks like, okay? And now I'm going to, remember guys, we talked about this in the video, you got to have your chest stapled to his back, right? Think of the analogy I gave of the butterfly pinned to a board. You want to, it's kind of a morbid analogy, but like you want to have, if you can imagine, a pin going between his chest and your chest, right? If you can maintain that relationship, you're going to be able to retain back control very, very well. So that's what I'm focused on here. Okay, now of course if I got to get my legs involved, I've got to score. I throw my first hook in. Let's go back a second. I throw my first hook in, not enough to score. Yeah, there was a bit of space here so I could throw this leg, and that's not always going to be there, in which case you're going to have to go for the hip up high knee. Okay, but there's enough space that I can throw the second hook in. I don't quite get it, actually. He turned and made it difficult for me to get that hook. Now here, what I'm going to do is, he turned. I don't really think that's what he ought to have done, and I get a second hook. Okay? Actually, it's funny, I didn't score here. This is the no points period. There's no points. We will see me score in a bit. All right. So I've got the back triangle, okay, but the back control with the back triangle. But I don't have any points because it's ADCC. The first 5 minutes, you don't get points, okay? So what's going to happen is, actually, I think it's the next one, but it's the same technique regardless. Because I'm in a parallel back control here, okay, my head and my legs are on the same side. I want to, my head's on the top side, right? That's the key factor. I want to do a hip out high knee to get to a diagonal back control where my head is going to be on the bottom and my legs are going to be on the top. That's going to give me way more offensive opportunities. So look what I do. I actually deliberately let the guy out, right? And what does he do? Predictably, he tries to get out, right? What I would try to do. I take my leg here, I position it as a hook, sort of like an outside hook, if you will, and I bring my hips out. Very important to not come up to your knees. If you guys are coaches and you're going to teach these techniques to your students, I fucking guarantee you're going to have students making that mistake even after you explain to them, okay? Because it's so natural to want to come up to your knees as you do this, okay? But you're going to have to reiterate to them, don't do that, and explain the mechanical reason for that, because it alters the relationship of your chest and his upper body. Your chest is going to be facing into the side of his shoulders, which is not what we want, okay? Now, very easy. Basically what you do is you're sliding up to a seated head and arm. Right there, I'm on a seated head and arm, right? It's very easy at this point to draw your knee up and throw your left leg, in this case my left leg, over the top. Now I can pull the guy into a diagonal back control. okay? Now I've got the diagonal back control. Immediately, you can see I have way more offensive opportunities. It's so much easier to start hand fighting here, okay? So I get cross grips, okay? And now this leg is going to come over the top, and it's going to trap his wrist. It's a lot easier to do that because my own arm isn't in the way of my leg. You know, if I was going for this from a parallel back control, your own arm would kind of be in your own way, right? And I can trap. Now, as we talked about, you know, intelligent people don't want to be stuck in a diagonal back control because the more attacks that I can launch at him, obviously the worse it's going to be for him. Okay, so he does a good job of bringing himself back. Bringing himself back into a parallel, bringing himself back into a parallel back control from a diagonal back control. So I've got a diagonal back control here, right? My head's on the bottom. This is way worse for him. He knows that. He puts me in a parallel back control. You're going to see this all the time. This is very, very common. So I've got to put him back in the diagonal. So what I'm going to do is, you're going to see in a second, the same technique that I just did. I let him out. Okay, there's a bit of a fight there, but ultimately I'm letting him out. Here I'm in a seated head and arm. It's not a perfect one because he's not up on my hips, okay, because he's trying to get his shoulders to the mat so he can get his elbow past my center line. But, okay, there. I improved the position. I pulled him back up to my hips. That enables me to throw my left leg over the top, and I complete my hip out high knee, okay? Same move that we saw before. Super, super useful movement, all right? Now we're going to see me do a very similar thing in a fight-to-win match. I do an arm drag to the back. Now, immediately, from this parallel back control, I'm going to go into a hip out high knee to go into a diagonal back control. I remember this match very distinctly because it was the first time I ever successfully performed a hip out high knee in a match. I am by nature a fairly conservative guy. I don't like to take too many risks, okay? Maybe if you look at my life, that doesn't that doesn't ring true, but in matches, I don't like to take too many risks, okay? So whenever I see something like letting him out of back, releasing my hooks seems risky, okay? When I was first taught the hip out high knee, it was by Ethan Krellinson at the Henzo Gracie Academy. I think he learned it from Firas Zahabi. Anyway, so I was pretty nervous of trying this, but once I hit it in this match, man, I felt so confident in being able to do it, moving forward, okay? The ADCC Trials match we just watched, that was a couple weeks after this fight to win, okay? And now I'm very confident doing it in matches. I don't feel worried about it at all. As long as you have good control of the upper body, you're fine, okay? So anyway, I let him, see what I'm doing? I'm letting him hop over that leg, okay? And now my left leg comes out. The camera angle makes it a little bit harder to see, but my left hook is out, right? Now I'm going to hip out. Now I pull him up. Now when I got that straight line between my knee, his head, and my head, not perfectly straight, but pretty good. Now my left leg's going to come over the top, and I pull him into a diagonal back control, okay? So let's take a look at that one more time. Throw it over the top. It's such a strong movement, guys. It's so much stronger than just trying to like move your hips side to side, okay? You have momentum on your side, which is really enabling you to pull them into that diagonal back control. All right, now I'm going against an opponent. I had, before this match, in a previous match, heel hooked him, and he was very wary of the leg locks. Here, I'm going for the drag, and oftentimes I'll use drags in order to, if he wants to defend the arm drag, he's going to pick his leg up, so it's difficult for me to climb and expose his back. Okay, it's difficult for me to go from his elbow to his hip and secure back exposure. All right, what he does here is he doesn't want to pick that leg up, because if he does that, there's a limb extension. I can shoot my leg through to inside position and start attacking him with variations of Ashigarami. So he keeps his knee bolted to the mat. Okay, so it's really the fear of the leg lock which gave me the back control here. I remember in this match, I was like so surprised he wasn't picking his leg up. You see, there's a bit of like a delay here. I should have acted faster to gone after that hip, but regardless, it's such a common reaction. I was really expecting it. Regardless, if he doesn't pick that leg up, I go for the hip, and from here, it's not too difficult to take his back. Okay, now again, he's not an idiot. He does not want to be in a diagonal back control. He wants to be in a parallel back control. Okay? Even if people don't understand, like don't know these terms, or maybe they can't explain to you like the mechanical advantages of diagonal back control over parallel back control, it's kind of intuitive. You figure it out pretty soon. When people start taking your back, and on one side you're getting submitted a lot, the other side not so much, you start to figure it out, all right? So people are going to try to put themselves in a parallel back control. All right, so right away, I'm going to go into a hip out high knee, okay? It's here, again, basically what it's doing is it's putting you into a seated head and arm, okay? The seated head and arm is such a strong position. From there, it's so easy to switch to a diagonal back control. And immediately, I'm going to go into hand fighting. I'm going to get cross grips and a trap. Okay, I want to talk about what I'm doing with my legs here. Okay, there are many different ways to configure your legs when you've got somebody's back. I actually prefer crossing my feet at the ankles rather than putting my foot behind his back. Okay, in the previous match, the Fight to Win match against Jonathan Stottlemyre, if you guys go check that out on Flow, I put my foot behind his back, I did finish him. But sometimes I feel like when I do that, because you don't have closed wedges there, somebody who's really good, you'd be surprised sometimes how well they can pry your bottom. In this case, it'd be like my bottom leg, right? If this leg was behind his back, they'll pry open this leg and hop over it, and then you lose the back control, and they start to face you, and your strangle becomes dog shit. It's not really strong anymore. I had a training partner at Henzo Gracie Northern Ballet named Anthony Gojani. Fucking Christ, he was so good at that. Okay, so I would always keep my wedges closed against him. Obviously, both can work, but that's just my general preference is to keep my wedges closed for that reason. Okay, so anyway, that's what I do here. Now, he does something which I don't think you ought to ever do. If somebody ever traps your hand and you're in a diagonal back control, do not try to go back to a parallel back control. It might have made sense before to do it, but now it doesn't make any sense because your arm's trapped. It's so easy to strangle you from this point. You know what I mean? A good example of this, other than this match, is Nikki versus Hideo Tocaro. If you guys checked it out, it was a quintet special super fight. It should be on Fight Pass. Man, Tocaro, great grappler. He's an old school legend of the Japanese grappling community. Just made a big mistake there. I do not think you ought to turn this way. Granted, you're pretty fucked almost no matter what you do, but I still don't think this is a good move. And I get the strangle. Now, this last one we're going to look at, it's something I mainly want to look at so that we can explore the interplay between different offensive options in the diagonal back control. I've made the argument that it's a more offensively robust position, but up to this point, all we've seen are strangles. Okay, so let's take a look at something else you can do here. It's way easier from this position. Go for obviously I'm trying to trap the hand so I can go into a strangle, but this guy was doing a pretty good job defending it, so I decide, all right, instead, even though I've got the hand trapped, decide, all right, I'm going to transition into a pinned Jujigatami. From that same Kimura grip from the back, you can also, if you've got the hand trapped, you can go to a back triangle as well. Here, for this specific match, I had been working a lot on my arm locks, so I really wanted to practice it in this match. But as you see, I went right back to the back. I felt like he was coming up. And guys, as I said before, I'm a pretty conservative guy. I like to spend a lot of time working stuff before I try it in a match. And even then, when I try it in the match, I like to, if I feel resistance, go back to what I'm comfortable with. Maybe not the best trait for a competitor to have, but regardless, it is how I am, okay? So, but anyway, I went for the arm lock, right? Yeah, maybe I should have persisted a little further, but I went back to the well with what I was good at so I could get the win. All right, so I practice it. I go back to the back control. Now here, this time, I'm gonna succeed in getting the strangle. Okay, so I'm gonna do some hand fighting. I've got my cross grips. Okay, I'm gonna trap, and this time I'm gonna punch through to the strangle. Okay. Now here, all he's got is his chin. I'm trapping one arm with my legs. My left hand in this case is holding his other hand. Okay. I'm gonna use my right hand to force up his chin. I'm driving into his jaw and pulling up. Gordon did this against forget the guy's name. He did it at that Connecticut, if you guys remember that. It's the match where he was like, good luck, buddy. But yeah, anyway, I put my wrist under the chin, so I have a very efficient strangle, and I finish. Again, take a look at my legs, crossed at the ankle. That's my preference. Really tough guys can fight through a strangle, And if your wedges are open, I don't like how he can start taking this leg, putting it on the mat, and hopping over. I've had issues with that in the past, okay? So I typically like to keep my feet crossed, all right? So anyway, guys, hope you guys have enjoyed this analysis, and I'm going to try to be more consistent with this. It's been a fucking busy couple of months, so it's been difficult, but, got more free time now. So stay tuned for more videos.